Hello, everybody. Welcome to Programming Grind. Nope, sorry, Workout Grind. Um, and today's theme is my last whitening strip. As you can tell from the title, this is the last, the last of my strips. So I'll be using this, and then I'm officially done with my whitening process that took me 3 months to do for just supposedly 2 weeks of application daily. You can see how much inconsistent I am with things. Anyways, today I'm gonna do some workout. It's already afternoon. It's 6:37 p.m., but it's better late than never. I did not get to do some workout yesterday. I'm supposed to, but it was like very busy because there's like people visiting over in our house, and I have to like look up to people and stuff, so I didn't get to do it, and I didn't wake up early. That's one of the reasons as well. I'll try to sleep early tonight, and I'm going to grind programming. What else I'm gonna do? Yeah. I'll try to take off a checklist down again in one of my to-do lists. So yeah, I'm gonna just take off my clothes. I'm gonna prep. I clean up my room prior to this, so that's also one of the delays of why I'm not like prepared yet. So yeah, that's what's going on. We're gonna start with another arm set. Supposedly this is day two, which is going to be chest set. It's been a whole fucking lot of while that I've done chest sets. So yeah, I think I'm gonna do chest because last time I didn't do chest as well, which is crazy. So you know what? I'm actually gonna do that. I miss chest workouts, and technically it is supposed to be chest workouts today, so yeah, might as well, right? Anyways, I'm going to start the timer now. I'm just gonna put a little bit of a buffer time just for me to set up everything else. I'm gonna listen to TED Talks, maybe, but it's probably gonna be varying based on my past activities. I've been delving towards other videos like Veritasium and stuff, but we'll see how it goes. I'm pretty sick of TED Talks. I want to research more into a little bit of a business thing going on, but I'm not sure. Let me think about things that might be good, beneficial to learn. You know what? You know what? Nah. This one's good. All right, I'll start with that one. All right. Before that, as you can see, I'm a little bit thinner now because I have been limiting how much I eat lately. I've skipped some meals like lunch and dinner sometimes on occasion, and sometimes I don't eat at all. So you could probably see me lose some weight, but hopefully that does not affect too much of my muscles. I've been eating protein a bit more now, so I think that's going to be enough. Yeah, there's some muscles as you can see, but they're not much. Look, I'm trying to get rid of this. You see this? I'm trying to get rid of this. There's a little bit of belly fat, which is not ideal. I want it to be just blank, flat state, you know? And then when I get that, then I'm gonna start trying to build muscles or something. I don't know if that's how it works. I'm trying to cut basically. I'm trying to fucking cut. But yeah, I'm just gonna. I still have my pre here. I guess there's nothing else to do. You know, I'm just gonna put this whitening strips. Just a second. Alright, we're ready. I got a whitening strip. I got my pre. We're on set to start our grind. Let me just put this on. Let me just see if that's, yep, that's correct. Let me just put this to timer. There you go. Better. I kind of fucked up the process, but I fixed it. So let me just restart the timer. I'm gonna look for the thing. I should have prepared everything else, so just 10 seconds. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure.
I wanted to have a nice day and night. I wanted to go to maybe 1 or 2 or 3 places. I wanted to stay with Horace and Cynthia for a while, and maybe have another old friend or two join us. At the very least, I wanted to focus and get a couple important things done. I didn't do any of that. I'll make up for it today, though. No questions asked. No excuses. I'm getting lunch in Copenhagen. My e-telly must be malfunctioning, because I don't even remember choosing this place, or any place for that matter. I could have sworn I had just woken up. My eyes are still crusty. 2 of my friends show up, Charlie and Alex. They love transmitting to places. We get some food, and our e-tellies are already out. We're ready to go. We try to coordinate our plans as best we can. That's always hard to do. We were at Kuta Beach in Bali. We were at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art in California. We were at Alex's apartment. We were at a bar and restaurant on the coast of Maine. We were looking at the Bridge of Sighs in Venice. We're moving so quickly, however, we lose each other. We are on our own separate routes now. For the rest of the day, I continue to go to more places, trying to coordinate with Charlie and Alex, as well as other friends and colleagues, as best I can. But I'm mostly just going to places by myself. Countless places by myself. I'm in my bed. It's the next morning. Monday morning. I have to go to work. My head hurts. I'm tired and anxious. I was supposed to be at work 10 minutes ago. I'm at my workstation. I open my display screens and begin working. I need to get this work done today. It was due last week. I can't transmit anywhere today. I need to stay here, focused. I'm walking the streets of Tokyo. Just one place for a little while is fine. It is night here. The colorful neon lights of the signage and advertisements violently flash against my eyes. My eyes barely notice. I pass by thousands of people as they pop in and out of the city streets. I'm back at my workstation. It's harder to focus now. I pull up more display screens and begin to review some work. Documents comprising words, numbers, and symbols that mean very little to me. I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't care about it. I need this job, though. I need to get this work done today. I'm on an observation deck on a New York City skyscraper. I'm watching a man in a suit propose to what I presume is his girlfriend. I can't help but laugh. I'm on a couch with Charlie and Alex. I'm at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. There are protesters here. I'm back at work. I'm home. I'm back at work. I'm home. I'm at a concert with friends. I don't know the artist. I don't recognize them. People seem to really like her, though. The crowd is making me claustrophobic, and it's kind of boring. I can't really see anything too well. I never understood why people go to concerts. I'm in the French countryside, alone. The landscape is vast. The people are scarce. It's way too quiet, and there's way too much space. I'm back at work. I'm home. I'm back at work. I'm home. I'm at the Santa Monica Pier in California with Charlie. We play one round of one of the carnival games. I've lost track of the time, of the day, of the week. I continue to go to more and more places, and more places, and more places. I am barely at any of them. I am moving faster and faster. Time slips further and further away. Time is meaningless. Everything is meaningless. I want everything to end. I'm in some sort of quarry. I'm at the bottom of it, standing on what I assume is bedrock. How did I get here? How many years have gone by? I honestly don't remember much of anything prior to that first teleportation device I tried. There are mining vehicles around me and up the paths carved out of the quarry walls. There is no one in any of them. There is no one around at all. I'm used to being alone. I'm almost always alone. Most people have either left my life or I've left theirs. A lot of friends and family have scorned my lifestyle, telling me I need to slow down or stop. Many have left me because of it. There are so many ultimatums I failed to oblige. I get it, but it would be nice to be loved, at least once in a while, as I am, not who I'm supposed to be. Maybe then it would be easier to be who I'm supposed to be. The area surrounding the quarry looks familiar. There are old, abandoned towers and buildings in the distance that I recognize. I know where I am. This is by my childhood home. I used to come here a lot, with my friends. We would walk around and ride our bikes through the trails in the surrounding woods. I think we camped here a few times as well. I can't think of the last time I spent time like that with friends, or anyone, including myself, where there was nowhere to go and no one to be or not be, and I was happy with that. I hear faint footsteps against gravel. I look up and see the silhouette of someone at the top of the quarry. It's a man. He's looking at me, staring at me. I stare back at him. He's waving now. I wave back, but with discomfort. I don't like waving at strangers. I don't like strangers at all. Now he's walking down the quarry wall toward me. Is that Horace? I yell, unsure. Hey! His familiar voice yells back. He walks all the way down to the bottom to meet me. We hug. Holy shit, how long has it been? He asks genuinely. I'm not sure, but I guess. I don't know, a few years? Wow. How you been? All right. How about you? Good, great, he says. What are you doing here? I ask. Cynthia and I live just a little up the road. You remember our apartment, right? We bought a house just a few blocks from there. I go on little walks every day. Sometimes I come here. For old time's sake, you know? He pauses. How about you? What are you doing here? I don't say anything. I'm embarrassed. I think he knows why I'm here. My pause is long enough that it says everything. Horace moves his head a bit and widens his eyes. He waits for a moment. I'm just hanging out, I guess, I say. Horace shakes his head like he understands what's behind my words. Alright, well, hey man, I'll leave you to it. It was great seeing you. He begins to fully turn around and walk away, but then he stops and turns around again. You know, when I first tried it, I thought teleportation was the coolest thing ever. And it is cool, but I've realized it isn't really anything new or different or exciting. I had been teleporting long before I ever had an e-tele, before physical teleportation was ever invented. Whatever tools, devices, or methods I could use to leave the moment, in my body and mind, to uproot any emotions before they sprouted and blossomed inside of me for me to have to take care of and water, I would do it. I would constantly keep moving. I would distract myself with quick, simple pleasures. I would numb my faculties. All of that always takes you somewhere new or further away, but wherever it takes you, you still end up there. The problem isn't about where you are or who you are with or even what you are doing. It's about you. It's about how you feel and the quality of your experience. And I've found that gets better with patience, slowness, simplicity, attention, a willingness to be wherever you are and open to whatever is happening. Horace looks down toward the side of my torso. I follow his gaze. My e-tele is in my hand. I don't remember taking it out. It must have already been there. Do whatever you want. Live however you want. I love you either way, man. But if you want, you can join me on my walk back right now. We can look around a bit, talk a bit, catch up a bit. He points up the quarry walls. It'll take longer, but it will feel better for longer. I look down at my e-tele, then at him. I look up at the quarry walls. Where should I go from here? I wonder to myself. Thank you for watching. Existing is extremely disorienting. Existing in the modern world only seems increasingly so. There's so much that seems to want to take control from us. The books, The World Beyond Your Head by Matthew B. Crawford and Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anna Lemke provide transformative insights
really
around this
good.
problem, covering things like the pains of chasing pleasure, how to find balance, gain back self-control, and focus. This video is sponsored by the visual interactive learning app, Imprint. Understand things like the psychology of social dynamics with engaging courses, lessons, and summaries. Get a free 7-day trial and 20% off an annual premium membership using my link in the description. What does it mean to be respected? Is fear or love more effective? What does it mean to lead and be led? What is success and goodness in a world filled with malice and ambiguity? These questions, along with many more, were asked and attempted to be answered by one of the most revolutionary political philosophers in history, Niccolo Machiavelli. Machiavelli's work attempted to dismantle the very ideas of goodness, cruelty, leadership, and power. He is now often regarded as one of history's first true pragmatists and the father of modern political science. Regardless of any universal truth to his ideas, or lack thereof, regardless of his intentions, and regardless of one's own interpretations of his work, there is much to learn from Machiavelli, both in terms of what to do and what not to do in life. Machiavelli was born in Florence, Italy in 1469. His father was a doctor of law with a largely unsuccessful practice. Likely more important to Machiavelli's story than his father's profession was his father's propensity toward reading, particularly that of Greek authors, which exposed Machiavelli to a library of books and the habit of reading. This would surely play a role in laying the groundwork for his later perceptiveness and sensibilities. Machiavelli's later philosophy can also be largely attributed to the political conditions of Florence during his lifetime. In the 15th century, the Republic of Florence was riddled with conflicts and chaos, often leading to dysfunction, insecurity, violence, and tyranny. There were coups, deceit, assassinations, and power struggles. Popes waged wars, and alliances constantly changed. Most importantly, the political and social events of Renaissance Florence displayed a clear divergence from the ideals and intentions they seemed to claim or be built on. Ideals of Christianity, like kindness and humility. How things were supposed to be always seemed to fall to the feet of how things actually were. Appearances were often facades. Religious and ethical ideals were often shields used to cover the undermining devious nature of those who held them. In early adulthood, Machiavelli experienced the government of Florence firsthand when he was impressively appointed to the Second Chancery around 1494, where he then received several position advancements and, by the age of 29, obtained the role of secretary, which put him in charge of the Republic's foreign affairs. In 1512, however, the Florentine Republic was overthrown, and a family of bankers and rulers known as the Medici family took back rule of Florence, having previously ruled for many years before losing power after a failed peace treaty with France. Once back in rule, the Medici family suspected that Machiavelli was participating in a conspiracy against them, which resulted in him being tortured and then exiled from Florence. In exile, Machiavelli would produce his two major works, The Prince and Discourses on Livy. By far, Machiavelli is most known for The Prince, which was written around 1513 and then later published in 1532. Though there are several ways one can interpret Machiavelli's intention with this work, at least in part, it was written as a gift for Lorenzo de' Medici, the Prince of Florence at the time, likely in an effort to gain his favor and employment. Broadly, The Prince reads like an instruction manual for how a prince should rule in order to be effective. Crucially, in The Prince, effectiveness blankets over all other goals and parameters. Machiavelli appears solely focused on effectiveness above everything, above goodness, above virtue, above loyalty, above honesty, and so on. Ultimately, The Prince articulates a largely amoral strategy for rulers, and it weaves a sort of web of information to be used to catch others and hold on to power with. Like how a spider might regard a fly merely as a meal, The Prince seems to suggest that a ruler ought to regard their enemies, anyone who gets in their way, or anyone who they deem must be devoured, just the same as the fly. The work is so extraordinarily dark, cynical, and pessimistic, it was banned by the Catholic Church for centuries, and one prominent cardinal by the name of Reginald Pole wrote, "I had scarcely begun to read the book when I recognized the finger of Satan. Its author is an enemy of the human race." Ironically, banning the book might itself have been resemblant of a Machiavellian tactic. Around and following Machiavelli's time, princes and rulers were generally considered good, largely based on their adherence to the moral principles of Christianity: honesty, meekness, forgiveness, loyalty, and so on. Machiavelli, however, couldn't help but notice and get hung up on where these principles were derived from: the story of Jesus Christ. A story in which a man was humiliated, rejected, arrested, tried, and crucified. From a practical human perspective, this was not a story of triumph, but a story of defeat and ineffectiveness. Most rulers, after all, don't get resurrected, literally or metaphorically. Machiavelli could see the same story of defeat and ineffectiveness unfold with leaders, merchants, and individuals in general who followed suit in such ideals. so-called good statesmen or merchants tended to lose to those who pretended to be good and then used any number of malicious tactics when they needed to in order to serve themselves. And so, rather than meekness in the name of goodness, Machiavelli believed a good, successful leader was one who maintained their power and forged a stable, secure nation at essentially all costs and by whatever means necessary. Those who were at least willing to be immoral or amoral in their decisions and actions as leaders tended to accomplish the goals and duties of a leader more often and more powerfully, at least during this time and at least in the eyes of Machiavelli. One of the central ideas of Machiavelli's view on effectiveness was respect, and for him, respect was safest and most likely to be sustained by fear, as opposed to love or hatred. To be clear, it's not that being loved was bad in the mind of Machiavelli, but rather, in his own words, upon this a question arises, whether it be better to be loved than feared, or feared than loved. One should wish to be both, but because it is difficult to unite them in one person, it is much safer to be feared than loved. Fear, in other words, is hard for individuals to overlook and overcome, and it is easy to instill and control. Love, alternatively, is volatile, unpredictable, and hard to control. People can somewhat easily change the orientation and intensity of their love for any number of reasons. Hatred, however, is worse than both. One's appearance as a leader must always be favorable, and one's method of achieving this should be by finding the equilibrium of respect by balancing out both reward and punishment, tension and alleviation. Of course, hopefully without needing to be said at this point, taken at face value, the ideas contained in The Prince are extremely questionable. Even from a somewhat tempered, charitable view of these ideas, and putting aside Machiavelli's potential reasoning for creating his works, there are abundant criticisms of the ideas and views. Consider what Fyodor Dostoevsky observed and warned about hundreds of years later in his book Crime and Punishment, with his character Rodion Raskolnikov, who is purely rationalistic and nihilistic and uses whatever methods he can to get ahead and serve himself, but ultimately ends up being deprived and tormented by this view. Consider Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative, with which he argues that moral actions must always be based on principles that consider and serve how everyone should act and would want to live, not based on individual outcomes, circumstances, or subjective desires. And perhaps most convincingly, consider the very foundations of general morality and goodness, which suggest that in order to live in a good world, we each must act in accordance to how we would want the world to be, how we would want others to act and treat us. If we all go around clawing over each other to get to the top of the pile, there will be no pile left, and if there is, there will be nothing worthwhile to see from the top. What is power in a world of ruins? What is prosperity without the unbridled and unconcerned ability to share it healthily with others? And moreover, is not what the world becomes sometimes how we believe it ought to be? If we want a good world, both in terms of morality and prosperity, we must believe in a good world, and we must create a good world on that belief. For Machiavelli, however, if the goal is power, then perhaps these points are irrelevant. But the point is, perhaps the goal of humans isn't solely power, and if it is, perhaps it shouldn't be, at least not solely. In light defense of Machiavelli, however, perhaps this cannot be said for everyone. Some, if not many individuals, might very well be chiefly interested in power, and they might be fully willing to engage in or justify malicious tactics to obtain and sustain it. And perhaps this is where Machiavelli's work is actually most useful and practical. Another interpretation of The Prince is not as a manual for rulers, but a warning for the ruled. It is perhaps more of a portrait of humankind, painted in the style of total realism, with which one can see humanity as it really is, or can be, and can understand what to look out for, as well as how to protect oneself against it. How we live is so different from how we ought to live that he who studies what ought to be done rather than what is done will learn the way to his downfall rather than to his preservation, Machiavelli wrote. Moving somewhat beyond the realm of mere governance, we can and likely should consider a degree of Machiavelli's insights in our own individual lives. Firstly, it should be noted that, likely for Machiavelli, goodness and love are in fact ideals and are great whenever possible, but they are just simply not always possible. Being as nice as one can is great, but being dedicated to acting nicely all the time is almost certainly a performance, and almost certainly a performance that will cause more harm than good. The truth is, even the kindest and most well-intended people cannot always be nice or good, nor should they. It is not only impossible, but it is sometimes counter to the very goals of niceness and goodness. It can lead to self-neglect and self-sacrifice, which can lead to resentment or worse. It can lead to misalignment, deceit, or miscommunication, intentional or unintentional. If niceness is always the sole goal, one will have to constantly hide their true views, hopes, and desires in order to avoid upsetting or offending anyone, which inevitably leaves the truth hidden, and the truth, of course, always comes to light. Hiding it only makes it come back in worse form. Life is, at bottom, a series of messy trade-offs, including that of ethics and pleasantness. Ultimately, each of us are, in our own lives, part of the portrait of humanity. We're all participants in groups and societies, both local and broad. We each lead and are led. And we each experience varying dynamics and degrees of power, even if we have no interest in significant power or in playing the games of politics and rule. Power extends to and from everything in which we engage. To have any freedom at all is to have the power to withstand and prevent imposition. And regardless of whether humans are inherently good, bad, or neutral, we will all encounter bad people trying to impose on us, or otherwise good people trying to impose on us. Some people will inevitably screw you over, take advantage of you, ignore you, belittle you, or even hurt you if you let them. Men are so simple of mind and so much dominated by their immediate needs that a deceitful man will always find plenty who are ready to be deceived, wrote Machiavelli. And so, it is of utmost importance to not let them. Don't let them deceive you. But also, don't become them. Don't unnecessarily deceive. Every time we do not defend our own world, we open the door to dysfunction and disorder within it. But likewise, every time we do not strive to propel goodness into and forward in the world as a whole, we close the door to hope in a world worth living in. Before passing away in 1527, Machiavelli wrote several other books, including The Art of War and Florentine Histories. Following his death, his work gained increasing notoriety, and a term for the particular archetype of villain and villainous activity described by his work would be named after him, now known as Machiavellianism. But Machiavelli's thesis appears to be much less like that of villainous support and more likely to be that of the following. Apparently bad things can sometimes equate to good outcomes, and stable, effective outcomes for a nation is the utmost achievable good. Whether this is a good thesis or not is a different question. In truth, the origins and meaning of Machiavelli's work are both somewhat unknown and easy to misunderstand. Another interpretation of his work is that it was satire, merely mocking the dysfunction of principality. Regardless, what is known is that Machiavelli himself, after writing The Prince, never went on to obtain any sort of notable political success or power. Perhaps that was a matter of misfortune. Perhaps his own methods and his espousing of them in the way he did were not so effective. Or perhaps he did not mean to suggest that said methods ought to be used, and so he did not use them. Whatever the case may be, his work would nonetheless go on to inspire both real and fictional individuals. He would inspire the work of philosophers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Friedrich Nietzsche, and Francis Bacon, leaders like Henry VIII, Charles V, and likely countless more, including perhaps the founding fathers of America and current world leaders, and writers like William Shakespeare, as well as most, if not all, comedic and tragic writers who've ever included a villainous archetypical character in their work. Perhaps more notably, most people's adverse reaction to at least the more villainous interpretation of Machiavelli demonstrates an innate human impulse away from such ideas and towards something better. Machiavelli's views on how the world was or is perhaps far less important than how the world can be. A man, Machiavelli wrote, who is used to acting in one way never changes. He must come to ruin when the times, in changing, no longer are in harmony with his ways. With this, perhaps Machiavelli himself would know better than to take his own ideas seriously outright in all times and places throughout history. We have, as a humanity, adapted and evolved a great deal since the conditions of the Renaissance. We are each new brushstrokes on the portrait of humanity, and it is up to each of us to try to paint a smile on the face. And it is up to each of us to decide if the smile is genuine. Understanding how to be both a good and effective person, how to be both fair to others and fair to oneself, chiefly requires a respect for human psychology. One must understand the nuances of the mind, evolution, and social cohesion. An extremely effective, engaging way to do this is with the course Interpersonal Dynamics, the Psychology of Human Relationships, which you can access using this video's sponsor, Imprint, an incredible visual and interactive learning platform. The Interpersonal Dynamics course is taught by Olivia Kang, who is a neuroscientist and instructor of psychology and leadership programs at Harvard University. The courses and lessons on Imprint also use beautiful illustrations and animations, as well as gamification methods based on the science of learning to make the learning process not only enjoyable, but totally addicting in the best sense of the term. If you love Pursuit of Wonder videos, you'll surely love Imprint. In a world where content addiction is the norm, forming habits around enriching educational content that actually improves the way you think and live is what differentiates one from the masses. The course, Interpersonal Dynamics, is a 90-day course that covers a comprehensive array of topics, from the evolutionary origins of human social dynamics to understanding and applying insights of the mind towards strengthening and managing relationships in today's world. Other fantastic courses on Imprint include Build Leadership Skills, Communicate Effectively, Resolve Conflict, Make Smarter Decisions, and Essential Philosophy. Beyond courses, Imprint also has tons of summaries and lessons from some of today's greatest thinkers, books, and schools of thought, covering nearly every area you can think of, from science to wellness to history and much more. With over 30,000 5-star reviews on the App Store and Google Play, and winning awards like Google's App of the Year and Apple's Essential Education app, Imprint is an incredible way to turn otherwise wasted moments of mindless scrolling into powerful opportunities for knowledge and development. Use my link in the description below to sign up for Imprint, and you'll receive a 7-day free trial and 20% off your annual premium membership. And of course, as always, thank you so much for watching in general, and see you next video. The way we think dictates so much of our experience of life. Expand beyond conventional ways of thinking through powerful thought experiments in my latest book, The Art of Living an Absurd Existence. The link is in the description. Death, the most terrifying of evils, is nothing to us, because as long as we exist, death is not present. Whereas when death is present, we do not exist. It is nothing to those who live, since to them it does not exist, and it is nothing to those who have died, since they no longer exist. Epicurus. Some of us might think about death often, others of us less so. Some of us might not think about it much at all. Regardless of how much or how little one might think about death, it is of course, nonetheless, the fate of us all. If we can think about anything, then we are alive. And if we are alive, then we will die. To adapt the philosopher René Descartes' famous cogito, I think, therefore I die. Found in the relationship between thinking and death is something far more unsettling than merely thinking's implication of death. Thinking not only implies death, but death implies a strange and somewhat terrifying paradox about thinking. In all likeliness, nothing comes after this life for us. The term nothing here being used as a sort of proxy for what is beyond words, beyond thoughts, beyond concepts, and beyond subjective conscious experience. Of course, it is possible that something comes after this life. It is possible that there is an experience of something, and that we go somewhere. Perhaps, somehow, there remains some sort of continuity in our subjective experience and perception. But again, in all likeliness, if we are going to grant any faith in physical reality and our scientific understanding of that physical reality, then, from the perspective of a subjective experiencer who exists as a result of the physical mechanisms of one's brain, when one's brain, or a sufficient proxy of one's brain, no longer functions or exists, then there is no longer a subjective individual, no experience at all. When one thinks of death, therefore, what is one actually thinking about? How can one conceive of the idea of the absence of not only all ideas, but the very capacity to ideate? To contemplate one's death is to project oneself forward not only in time, but in form, to the form and shape of nothingness. This, of course, is entirely nonsensical. Thus, death is not only unknown to us, but it is unknowable. The author, Eugene Thacker, argues in his book, In the Dust of This Planet, that human subjective thought invariably reaches limits and incongruencies with relation to accessing and comprehending the true nature of reality, or the world in itself and the world without us. More specific to Thacker's argument is that when thought reaches and realizes its limit, and one observes the sort of shadow or outline of an object or phenomenon that exceeds one's ability to comprehend it, because its very nature belies one's own, one experiences a kind of torment and horror. When referring to this sort of juxtaposition of the limits of philosophy embodied in mythical horror, Thacker writes, "The human can only understand the human by transforming it into an object to relate to, while the human can only relate to the objective world itself by transforming the world into something familiar, accessible, or intuited in human terms. This leaves one avenue open, which is the perspective of the non-human itself. As thinking, embodied beings, unable to fully detach ourselves from the subject-object relations that constitute us, this is undoubtedly a paradoxical move. In fact, it is doomed from the start." Of course, death is an explicit, tangible event representative of the paradox and limit of thought. It is perhaps the most explicit and tangible manifestation. It is not merely the loss of everything we own and everyone we know, but also everything we know and feel, and the very capacity to know and feel. Thus, by attempting to apply our subjectivity and processes of thought to it, the truth of it dissolves away. We can know of death, but we can never know death. It is a doorway that we almost enter, but can never look into. This, although perhaps obvious sounding, is quite puzzling and unsettling when one truly attempts to make sense of the existential conundrum of death. It is no wonder that religious and spiritual ideologies have and continue to fervently paint over the door of mortality with consoling, beautiful imagery. Humanity has long been attempting to trick itself into believing that what can be painted on the exterior of the door can represent what's inside, but it cannot. Even if there is some material within the brain, or universe more broadly, that is beyond our comprehension, and one might ascribe a sort of soul-like nature to, it is still material that follows materialistic principles of the universe, and it will still seemingly no longer be in the form required for its subjective function when the body was alive, when the body is dead. What creates a mind and a subjective sense of self appears to so obviously require a sustained, continued function, spatially or formally, which is seemingly broken and destroyed upon death. Regardless, no matter what is likely or possible after death, nothing resolves the fact that we do not know and seemingly cannot know what is true after our brain is gone. No belief, whether dualist, materialist, spiritualist, religious, or otherwise, has any basis in ultimate truth. They are theories at best and wishes at worst. We simply do not know enough about the mind, about consciousness, and about the nature of reality to make claim of anything that might or might not come. The idea of death, therefore, is seemingly not the kind of paradox we can resolve, and that is why for so many of us it is deeply unsettling and confounding. But perhaps, like many paradoxes, we learn more not by resolving it, but by embracing it. By relinquishing some degree of resistance to death and the paradoxical reality of it, and the unknowable nature of existence more broadly, we come to recognize its obscurity not merely as an object of fear, but also an object of awe, a source of humility, perspective, and meaning. In the words of the author, J.J. Vanduleo, "The mystery of life is not a problem to be solved, it is a reality to be experienced." Perhaps to paraphrase this quote, the paradox of death is not a problem to be solved, it is a reality not to be experienced. Our attention, our awareness, and our being can and should be directed here and now. If we take the paradox of death in the opposite direction, away from thought toward death and instead from death toward thought, we arrive at something like the following. If we can think about death, then we are alive right now. And if we are alive right now, conscious and self-aware, then we possess the capacity to do something that seemingly no other formations of the material of the universe can do, and, in all likeliness, we can only do for a little while, and will never be able to again. We currently each possess the capacity to think, to imagine, and to comprehend, to conceive of the very idea of our existence and mortality, and to poetically express wonders and meaning from it all. Death imbues life with meaning, not merely because it adds urgency and scarcity to life, but also because it reminds us that, on the other side of each of our existences, there is an infinitude of possibilities we don't know and likely can never know. There is a possible infinite nothingness beyond us that, right now, for whatever reason, we can see, contemplate, and fear the hazy, indiscernible outline of, from the cliff of the somethingness that is our brief existence. Our relationship with our thoughts is, in many ways, our relationship with life. We largely experience what we think about what we experience, and we, of course, can only understand and think about what we know how to. being able to both deal with and expand the limits of our thoughts is perhaps one of the most important and powerful things we can do. In my latest book of collected works, The Art of Living an Absurd Existence, I explore some of the most interesting, life-changing paradoxes and thought experiments in philosophy in order to help jolt you out of the familiar and monotonous and expand into new perspectives and a deeper appreciation for the mystery of everything. If you like this video, I think you'll really love the section, The Limits of Humanity, which is about the nature of knowledge, the patterns of perception, and the lapses of logic. The link to get your copy is in the description. If you've already gotten a copy or choose to get a copy, thank you so much. Your support truly means so much to me. And of course, as always, thank you so much for watching in general, and see you next video.
Hey guys, so I know it's like 20 minutes left. I still need one more set to finish this, but I think I'm gonna stop here now. It's so hot right now, like you would not believe how hot it is. I've turned on a little bit of fan here just to cool down a bit. That's how hot it is. Oh, for real. For real. So yeah, I can't stand this. And this is my first time coming back to this workout set after a long while. So I'm giving myself a little bit of a leeway, you know, a little pass, because I'm really tired. And oh boy, look at me, I'm sweating. That's crazy. I haven't sweat for a while. Anyways, yeah, that's it. So tomorrow I'll be jogging. I'll keep in mind to like take pictures every now and then. I remember I've been taking pictures for a lot of times. I barely took pictures for the past couple of months, which is depressing. So I'm gonna change that. And yeah, I'm just gonna take a bath, do some programming of it, and then I'll sleep early so I can wake up early and jog, hopefully by 6. That's pretty much it. I'm gonna try to finish my resume. After I finish my resume, I'll program, or maybe finish my I'll program, then do some Duolingo, some Japanese readings and stuff. It's gonna be fun. So yeah, I don't have much time anymore, so I'm just gonna leave right now, take a bath. I'm happy today. I finally get to do the chess set after having avoided it for a long while. Hopefully I can work out consistently next time, not like this. Anyways, that's all for today. Thank you. Hope you guys stay consistent